stop for a second. What if the silence you're feeling right now isn't emptiness, but the moment you stopped existing for everyone else and started becoming real? There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel calm or comforting. It doesn't soothe you. It doesn't relax your mind. It feels like something has vanished. The phone rests nearby, untouched. Messages go unanswered. Invitations fade away, or you ignore them without even thinking. And the person who once held everything together, the one who remembered every detail, showed up for everyone, replied instantly, carried conversations, carried people, that person is no longer there in the same way. The people around you notice. They just don't understand. Some label it as a breakdown. Others call it selfishness. Some whisper about depression, burnout, or a phase that will pass. They analyze it with clinical terms or react with quiet frustration. Sometimes even anger shows up, because anger is easier than admitting something deeper, that the person they depended on has changed. But there is another way to understand this, a way that doesn't reduce this silence into something broken, a way that doesn't treat your withdrawal like failure. There was a mind that spent years studying what happens when a human being begins to transform from the inside out. What was discovered wasn't weakness in those who withdrew deeply. It was something entirely different. The ones who stepped away the furthest weren't collapsing. They were reconstructing themselves from the ground up, not fixing what was damaged, not returning to what was lost, becoming something entirely new. And that process demanded something most people avoid at all costs. It demanded silence. It demanded stepping out of the roles you performed. It demanded the temporary death of who you thought you were so something more honest could take shape. This journey has a name, a process of becoming whole. But there is a final phase that almost no one talks about, not because it isn't real, but because very few reach it. And those who do struggle to explain it, it's the moment of return. And if you've lived through that quiet disappearance, if you've sat inside that strange withdrawal, if you've watched your identity dissolve without knowing what would replace it, then what you are hearing right now isn't just an idea. It's a reflection of exactly where you are. To understand this return, you have to understand what came before it, because this stage isn't for people who chose comfort. It belongs to those who kept going even when stopping would have made perfect sense. The deeply sensitive person, the one who feels everything, absorbs everything, carries emotions that were never theirs, eventually reaches a breaking point, not the kind of tiredness you fix with rest, a deeper exhaustion, the kind that makes you question your entire existence, not just what you're doing, but who you are. Because when your identity is built around helping, fixing, supporting, when your sense of self is tied to being there for others, then losing the ability to do that doesn't feel like fatigue. It feels like you're disappearing. The most perceptive people often reach this point not because they are fragile, but because they are unable to lie to themselves forever. They cannot keep performing endlessly. The unspoken agreements that shape their relationships, the silent contract of "I will carry your emotions and you will keep me close," eventually collapse. And when those collapse, everything built on them collapses too. From the outside, it looks like a breakdown, but internally, something else is happening, something necessary, something unavoidable. A dismantling that clears the way for something real to finally emerge. In this phase, you lose things that once felt essential. You lose the version of yourself that existed only to serve others. You lose connections that depended on your endless availability. You lose the image of being the strong one, the selfless one, the one who holds everything together. Because holding everything together required ignoring your own existence, and that can only last for so long. But inside that loss, something begins to surface. Beneath all the noise, all the roles, all the expectations, a quieter presence starts to appear, not loud, not dramatic, subtle, almost easy to miss. For the first time, you begin to feel your own emotions, separate from everyone else's. You begin to notice your own boundaries, your own preferences, your own needs, things that were always there, but never allowed to exist. You begin to experience what it actually feels like to be you, not a reflection of others, not a responder to everyone's emotional state, just you. This stage is uncomfortable, disorienting, sometimes frightening, because you are sitting in uncertainty without reaching for distractions, without escaping into helping someone else, and it takes time. There's no shortcut through it. Those who try to rush through this phase, who skim the surface and declare themselves healed, usually never reach the depth required for real transformation. But those who stay, who sit in the emptiness without rebuilding the same old identity, those are the ones who reach the next stage. Those are the ones who return. And this return isn't a sudden transformation. It's not a dramatic comeback. It's a slow, confusing process of learning how to exist as someone new in a world that hasn't changed. It starts quietly. A moment so small you almost ignore it. You wake up one day and something feels different, not fixed, not perfect, but lighter. The weight you've been carrying hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer crushing you. And for the first time in a long time, the silence doesn't feel threatening. It feels like it belongs to you. That's the first sign. Not happiness, not clarity, just a quiet realization that you made it through something and it changed you. But this new version of you is still fragile, still forming, like something rebuilt after being broken, stronger but sensitive. And here's what changes in a way you've never experienced before. You begin to have a real relationship with your own inner world. Not overthinking, not self-criticism, disguised as awareness, actual understanding. You know what you feel. You know why you feel it. You know where it's coming from. Before this, that was impossible. Before this, your emotions weren't entirely yours. They blended with everything around you. If the room was tense, you became tense. If someone was angry, you carried that anger. If a relationship felt off, you blamed yourself. There was no separation. But now something new exists. A space, a gap between what you feel and how you respond. And inside that gap, there's something you never had before. Choice. You can feel deeply without being consumed. You can understand others without losing yourself. You can decide what to do with what you sense. This doesn't mean you feel less. If anything, you feel more clearly than ever before. But now you don't drown in it. And here's where it gets complicated. Because when you return, you come back to the same environment, same people, same dynamics, same expectations. But you're not the same. And they don't know that. So they expect the old version of you. The one who fixes everything. The one who listens endlessly. The one who never has needs. And when that version doesn't show up, tension begins. At first, it's subtle. Comments, jokes, a shift in tone. Then it grows. You begin to see everything clearly. Patterns, behaviors, unspoken roles, dynamics that were always there but invisible to you before. And now you can't unsee them. You sit in conversations where everything feels transparent. You see what's really happening beneath the surface. And sometimes you say nothing. Not because you're weak, because you're learning discernment. Learning that not every truth needs to be spoken. That presence can be more powerful than reaction. But this clarity comes with a cost. Grief. A kind of grief no one prepares you for, because becoming whole means losing things. Real things. You grieve the simplicity of not knowing. The old version of life, even if it was painful, had a certain familiarity. You always knew what to do. Try harder, give more, stay longer. Now, that path is gone, and what replaces it requires something much harder. Presence, awareness, constant discernment. You also lose relationships, not because you became cold, but because those relationships were never built for the real you. They were built for the version of you that gave endlessly. And when that stops, many connections fall apart. And even when you understand why, it still hurts, because you're not just grieving what was lost, you're grieving what never truly existed, the version of those relationships where you were fully seen. And that grief is real. But something else begins to happen. As the old connections fade, space opens, and into that space, something new starts to appear. People who meet you, not for what you provide, but for who you are. At first, it feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because you were used to chaos feeling like connection, used to intensity feeling like love. Now, things feel calm, balanced, easy, and your mind questions it. But this is where the final shift happens. Learning to trust what doesn't drain you, learning to accept connection that doesn't require you to disappear, learning to exist in relationships where you are fully present, not just a role. And slowly, everything changes. The world doesn't feel as overwhelming, not because it became lighter, but because you are finally grounded in yourself. Your sensitivity, once a burden, becomes a strength. You can sit with people without absorbing them. You can understand without losing yourself. You can be present in a way most people never experience. And that presence changes everything. Because when someone feels truly seen, without judgment, without absorption, it creates something rare. And this is what all of it was for. Not to turn you into someone else, but to bring you back to who you were before you learned to disappear. And now you stand at the edge of something new, not a perfect life, but a real one, where you feel everything without drowning, where you see everything without turning away, where you return not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become.